Is it possible to get an entire state to read and discuss a single book? The One Maryland, One Book program is betting on it as readers from across the state open the pages of A Hope in the Unseen, a biography by Pulitzer Prize-winning author Ron Suskind. We'll talk about the book and about the One Maryland, One Book program next on Campus Conversations. Welcome to Campus Conversations. I'm Fritzi Bodenheimer.
And I'm Marcus Rosano. The Paul Peck Humanities Institute here at Montgomery College recently hosted a kickoff event for the One Maryland, One Book initiative, which was developed to not only encourage reading, but to foster discussion about issues like class, race, education, and social justice in our communities. The Maryland Center for the Book, which is coordinating the program, is asking Marylanders to read A Hope in the Unseen by author Ron Suskind, with hopes of starting dialogues about the social issues it presents.
The book tells an inspirational story of the dedication, hard work, and courage of Cedric Jennings, a high school student from Southeast D.C. who beat tremendous odds, eventually earning multiple degrees from some of the nation's best schools. And we're so pleased to have you here today, Cedric. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about growing up in Southeast Washington.
Wow, growing up in Southeast Washington D.C. It had its challenging moments, but you know my mom showed so much love that it overshadowed much of the challenges that I saw in the community, such as the violence and the drug dealing and those kinds of things. And she really got me off to a good start by instilling in me key values that would ultimately guide my footsteps in life.
That's a nice tribute to Mom.
When you did a speech here at Montgomery College and you talked about how your mom tried to instill the fact that there is a world out there other than Southeast DC, and some of the people, some of your friends and your peers, it was just Southeast, and you had that vision that there was something out there and you went for it. Talk a little bit about knowing that there was this world outside of Southeast and going for it.
Yes, it's amazing that, you know, many of my classmates, they hadn't even gone to the other side of the city to even like go on tour to visit the monument or those kinds of things. And, you know, it just spoke to the level at which people were afraid to explore the world and the environment. And, you know, I just thank God for my mom who was so unselfish in raising me to the point where she was trying to push me to places that she didn't get to go in life. And in doing so, she encouraged me to explore things that were different from what I was used to seeing growing up in D.C. And in doing so, you know, I've been blessed to gain a lot of insight and perspective on people and culture and different things in the world.
You talked about some of the difficulties, the challenges on the outside, people dealing drugs and violence and those sorts of things. But there were also some pretty big challenges inside, having enough to eat, having the heat in the wintertime. That must have been really hard to study and deal with those challenges at the same time.
Well, you know, it's a lot to ask of a young person to have to deal with those kinds of issues at home, and then on top of that, do well in school. But, you know, I've always been a survivor, and that runs in the blood of my family and among those in the African American community. That's our heritage. We're survivors. And, you know, I was thinking beyond what the immediate circumstances were, and was really working toward a future where I knew that I didn't have to go through that anymore, and would be able to reach back and pull other people up so that they wouldn't have to live in the same kind of situation. So.
Okay. Talk about the first scene in A Hope in the Unseen. It's Ballou High School. You're supposed to be at an assembly. Marion Barry, the mayor, was there.
Yes, he was.
You weren't. You were in Mr. Taylor's physics class when you should have been receiving an academic award that had monetary value to it, I might say, but you didn't go. Tell us about why you didn't go and why you were choosing to not accept that award in front of the 1,300 strong at Ballou High School.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Taylor was my chemistry teacher and mentor at the time. He has since passed on about 7 years ago. But Mr. Taylor was one of those teachers that I could talk to about anything, and he created a safe place for me in his classroom among other students. And I guess for me, it was not going to receive the award was out of fear of ridicule, as I had been teased before about being an overachiever, being a nerd, being those, you know, the names that come with that, trying to be white, that sort of thing. And so for that reason, I didn't want to attend the assembly, but I figured I would get my money later, which is what happened. I got the money later that that the students who had made straight A's and the honor roll had been allotted.
So what you're saying, straight A's and the honor roll, like you were trying to achieve, that didn't fly for a lot of your peers at Ballou.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, the thing is, you know, there were a number of students at the time I was at Ballou. It was about maybe anywhere between 80 to 100 honor students out of about 13 to 1,400 students in the entire school. And I believe that there are many students that wanted to achieve and that did achieve, but they realized that the secret, if you don't want to be made a target, then you don't speak highly of, you don't speak of your academic success. You do what you do, as they say, and you move on. And that's what a lot of my peers did. And I did that in some regards, but I was very proud at the same time. So it was sort of contradictory that I wouldn't go to the assembly, but you know, but that was the rule of thumb.
And eventually your academic success landed you at Brown University in Rhode Island. Tell us a little bit about how you selected Brown and a little bit about your first arrival there. What was it like?
Well, interestingly, many of my classmates at Brown had visited the university. They'd had the privilege of touring, you know, many schools in the New England area with their parents, and you know, had visited the admissions office, had gone on tours. Well, all I had to go by was a view book. And the fact that I knew a lot of famous people went there, had attended previously, and that I knew it was academically rigorous and was an Ivy League school. I had gotten the application for all of the Ivy League schools and narrowed it down to Brown, because Brown, out of all of the Ivies, seemed to be the most liberal and environment where you were encouraged to explore new things that were not within one's realm of comfort or that was different. And so I liked that. I liked the fact that it was far away from home. They had what at the time, and I believe they still have, what's called the open curriculum policy, where you weren't required to take all of these core curricular courses, but all you had to do was choose a major or could even develop a major and fulfill the requirements of that major. And then outside of that, you could explore different courses and subject matters. So for me, I like that sort of environment where you were given the autonomy to create your own course of action. So I like that a lot.
One of the things you said when you were talking here at Montgomery College is your first year at Brown, you shut yourself off socially, and you said that was probably one of the things to this day that you regret most. Tell us what you mean by that.
I shut myself off basically because I had made a vow. I'm this church boy going off to this secular place. And I had vowed to, you know, really hold true to my religious beliefs and all that I had been taught by way of morals. And in doing so, I closed myself off to folk because I was afraid that if I guess, became friends with folk that did some of the things that I said I wouldn't do, that it would rub off on me. And, you know, one of the most crucial lessons that I learned is that, you know, you never know what package your blessing will come in. And with that, you know, you can always be your own person and be an individual despite what goes on around you. And in realizing that, you know, it really strengthened me as a person and helped me to be grounded enough to be able to reach out of my comfort zone and interact with folk that I would typically have not met in D.C. or.
I was going to ask you about your comfort zone, because I'm picturing the first semester at Brown, and I'm guessing that there weren't a lot of people that came from the same background